Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. When high-profile incidents involving the LPD occur, our desire is to be as open and transparent as possible while taking into account the necessity of maintaining the integrity of our criminal investigation and potential trial. It is also important that the community trust the investigation process. It is in light of this the Lynchburg Police Department requested that the Virginia State Police conduct the investigation into the November 6, 2017 officer-involved shooting at 2900 block of Triangle Place, thus recusing the LPD from the criminal investigation. After the Virginia State Police concluded their part of the investigation into the officer-involved shooting, they sent their findings to Colin Stolley, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, Virginia Beach. As we've seen from his press release, Stolley determined that the officer's actions during the incident were lawful. Therefore, no criminal charges will be sought in this case. As is standard practice by the Lynchburg Police Department, we will conduct an internal investigation of the incident. The involved officers will continue their normal duties during the internal investigation. Body camera footage of this incident will not be released out of respect for and at the request of the family members of the deceased. This was a heartbreaking, tragic event for everyone involved, and it is my desire to honor the wishes of the family who do not want to see their loved one's death potentially used in depraved entertainment. However, desiring to be as transparent as possible while remaining respectful to the family's request, body-worn camera footage will be made available to a limited number of media members as view only. In this specific case, the Lynchburg Police Department has made the decision to show this video to the media in the spirit of trust and partnership with the community. In the future, each high-profile incident will be considered on a case-by-case basis. When deciding whether or not to release body-worn camera video, as we begin to move forward now that the Commonwealth Attorney has released his findings, I respectfully request that the media would respect the privacy of the family of the deceased and the privacy of the officers and their families. In closing, the officers of the Lynchburg Police Department work hard for the city of Lynchburg every day. They demonstrate our values of leadership, professionalism, and dedication every time they put on the uniform. We believe in a strong partnership between the department and the citizens we serve, and we ask for your continued support and partnership as we move forward together. I would also at this time like to thank the Virginia State Police for their professional investigation, and also like to thank our Commonwealth Attorney Office, Virginia Beach, Colin Stolley, for a fair and in-depth review of the case. With that, I will now open it up to some questions. Please.
Mr. Green, the fiance, he was claiming that the knife was being used. He says it was a pocket knife. I know he sent out a picture of it. He claims that that couldn't have actually killed an officer, that it wasn't enough of a threat. What's your response to that?
I totally disagree with that. Obviously, the knife that was used was a threat, and after review of the case by the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, they agreed. Yes?
Did Officer Hendricks receive crisis intervention training?
Officer Hendricks did receive mental health first aid training. I do not believe at this time he has received CIT training.
Is that something, how many officers in the department receive crisis intervention training, and would a situation like this change protocol where maybe more officers would receive it?
Well, the majority, I don't want to say the majority, quite a few of our officers already have CIT training, but all of our officers, when they come through the academy, receive mental health first aid training.
What can you tell us about Officer Hendricks' background in the department?
He's a solid officer, works very hard, very proud of the officer.
How long has he been with the department?
He's been with the department for 2 years.
Was he on leave?
No, he was working.
Okay. Was anyone in the incident, officers on leave?
No, they were working.
Okay. Did they have any sort of counseling after the incident?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. All the officers were given that opportunity and took advantage of it. Yes.
Chief, this comes just 1 week after 2 officers were indicted. With that news in mind, how did today's news affect the department? What have people been saying on the inside?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say that this is a happy, joyous moment because it's tragic. It was tragic for the family involved as well as for the officers who were involved. But I would say we're relieved and grateful for the outcome.
Can you walk us through how the decision was made to use that extension cord to open the door? And where did that come from?
So what you have, the report is all I have. So we will now begin our internal investigation to answer some of those questions. We don't have that information. We don't have the criminal investigations or the statements that were taken by the Virginia State Police. That information we don't have. So that's going to be part of the ongoing investigation. With that being said, I believe that the officers used whatever they had around them in order to be able to try to open a barricaded door without putting themselves in harm's way.
Do you know the timeline for that investigation and then conclude?
You talking about the internal investigation?
Yes.
No, I don't. I mean, obviously, it's ongoing. It's going to take some time, and it'll be full and thorough.
Okay.
Yes.
From that internal investigation, is that where you guys would look at perhaps changes in policy?
So what we would do is we would review everything that took place. We would match it up to policy, and we make determinations. Are we doing best practices? Now, I'd like to let you know that the Lynchburg Police Department consistently goes over its policies and procedures to make sure that we have best practices. Yes.
Is there anything you'd like Mr. Green to know? Because he has expressed that he's very upset with the outcome.
I'm very sorry for the way he feels about it, obviously. Mr. Green was there at the scene when we arrived, and you've read the report. You saw what Mr. Green said, and I understand Mr. Green's emotions. Yes, yes.
Do you think that with the two, I know this is very different situations between the two and now, but do you think that the public might be worried that you're using too much force in some situations?
I would hope not, because as you stated, these are two separate, completely different incidences. And in this case, it was proven that the officers acted within the confines of the law. In the other case, while the officers were charged, no one's been convicted of anything. That's an ongoing criminal investigation, and those officers are due to due process rights like anybody else, and they will have their day in court. Yes?
What's your message to Ms. Weber's family tonight?
I've spoken to the Weber family, and that conversation I had is personal, and I'll keep it like that. But once again, I know this is a tragic situation for them, and I feel for them, and I empathize with what they're going through. Yes.
Do you think Lynchburg police officers receive enough training with how to respond in mental health situations?
I believe we do. I believe that between CIT training and between the basic training that they receive for mental health first aid at the academy, they are receiving an adequate amount of training. Now, with that being said, I mean, on a consistent basis, and this is not just in the city of Lynchburg, but throughout the country, law enforcement is coming up against people who are in mental health crises, and we're trying to do the best we can dealing with those circumstances. So it's a challenge, and we continue to meet that challenge, but at the end of the day, those folks need help, and we're doing the best we can to accommodate them and help them when they are experiencing a mental health crisis.
How many hours is that mental health training that they receive in the academy?
I'll have to provide that for you. I don't have it in front of me.
Thank you.
Yeah,
CIT, I know Mr. Sweeney is leaving the department.
that's correct.
Is there plans to fill that position?
So the position in and of itself throughout the department will not be filled. However, the position will not go away. It's being transferred over to Horizon.
Okay.
Yeah. They will be conducting the training with the officers as well as other individuals outside of law enforcement. Yes.
And can you tell us about the special order that the police received on scene to be able to take her to the hospital when if they were able to get her out? Can you just walk us through that for people who are unfamiliar, if that's common practice or not?
Yeah. So what happens is if we believe that individual is experiencing a mental health crisis, we get that information, we present it typically before a magistrate. The magistrate will sign off on that documentation, giving us the ability to take that person into custody for mental evaluation. Yes.
Can you kind of talk about that fine line? Because I know it's a really tough situation when you're dealing with somebody that's suicidal, but also when an officer feels threatened. I mean, I feel like it's a very fine line that you kind of have to work with each situation you're in. And can you just talk about that and how hard it is, I guess, to make those decisions when
Sure. So a lot of times people, and I understand some people don't have the background or the education, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, these officers are put in situations where they have to make split-second decisions, sometimes in mere seconds, on whether or not they're going to use deadly force or they themselves are going to become a victim of deadly force. So that's a tightrope that all officers across the nation walk every day. And I would ask people to take that into consideration, especially when you see cases like this. Yes.
Can you tell us who the commanding officers were on scene?
I believe we're not going to give those names out to the media right now. However, I will say this. We had a total of 8 individuals at the scene, and we had ranks of supervisors on up to lieutenant on the scene. And the people who were on the scene were experienced people who both had experience in tactical responses as well as negotiation skills. Matter of fact, I believe it was, I want to say 7 to 8 of the officers who were there at the scene had some form of negotiation skills
Officer
and training.
Hendricks,
I'm
what
sorry?
rank was Officer Hendricks?
Say that one more time.
What is Officer Hendricks rank?
He is a patrol officer.
Thank you.
All right, Phil, yes.
Sorry, can you tell us a little bit about if Officer Hendricks had any disciplinary actions in his background recently, civilian complaints, or history of use of force?
So under the Virginia Code, we don't release that information, but I can tell you that Officer Hendricks is a spectacular officer. He's a premier officer. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I'm going to have Lieutenant Cruz get with you and pass out some information, as well as kind of explain to you how we're going to move forward.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
Okay. As the chief said, this is still an ongoing investigation internally, and we're going to conduct that, and when those findings come out, the chief will be speaking on those also. And I have a press release that the chief wrote, and I'm gonna pass it to you at that time. The media access that Chief talked about, as far as watching the video, he's gonna send that out. I don't know if he's gonna get it to it this evening, but he might get to it Monday. So the people that will have access, they will receive an email about that.
But absolutely no showing that video on air, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Based upon the family's wishes, they don't let that show on later.
Is the plan to send out a link to a video or to ask us to come to the department and watch the video? Do you know?
At that time, he's going to ask you to come to a location that
Okay.
hasn't been determined yet, and you'll be able to view it there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Yeah.